We're speaking with Jennifer Malone, who's the author of At Your Service, a middle grade contemporary out now from Aladdin Books. So, Jen, this story follows Chloe, who is a concierge in training at a fancy New York hotel. Her dad is head concierge, and she is following in his footsteps and learning the ropes. And in fact, she gets a job as junior concierge. And as I understand it, her job is great. It comes with all these kinds of perks. But then a royal family comes to town. Tell me about that and what happens next.
Yeah, so first of all, great summation. It's always fun to hear someone else describe your story because you're much more succinct than I would have been, so that's good. So what happens next is essentially the youngest princess, who is 9, ends up taking off, and she is on a mission to collect all of these souvenir pennies from the city's landmarks. So they don't know where she is, but they do have a roadmap of sorts in that they know where these penny machines are. And so they're racing around New York City trying to locate this girl before it becomes a big international incident and the press finds out and the parents find out. And of course, she's worried about her new job. But really what it was for me was a chance to write this love letter to New York City, because I got to take the characters to all the really touristy, fun places that I loved going as a kid and that I would have liked to read about as a kid. Mm-hmm. So it was very fun to write from that perspective.
Right, and it sounds like this huge sort of rollicking adventure. Like the premise seems sort of the stuff of wish fulfillment for any kid, yes. Right? Fancy hotel, and there are parties and concerts, and as you say, they chase all over New York, which sounds really fantastic. And as I understand it, you are also not a chaser all around the world, but your bio sports an impressively wacky, adventuresome past. So is it possible that the hijinks in your novel are somewhat inspired by your real-life shenanigans? Or?
A little bit, yes. I mean, definitely some mini experiences that I had as a traveler, but a little bit more inspired by my work experiences once I came back from traveling. I spent a year traveling solo around the world on a very shoestring budget, so it was not the stuff of fantasy. There were no cupcake parties in my hotel suite, like Chloe has in her hotel.
Right.
But when I came back, I was actually managing a youth hostel, and so I was having all of these travelers come in, and it was in my hometown of Baltimore, and asking me all of these, where should I go, what should I do? And so I had a little bit of a concierge experience, although much more frills-free,
right.
Which came into the story quite a lot. And then I worked as a publicist for 20th Century Fox and got to see the big fancy hotels and do a lot of premieres and glitzy events, and so I was able to kind of draw from those experiences to describe the hotels and some of the wacky things that she would be doing for her guests who were at that level.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, how do you get inside a child's voice? What is that process like for you as a middle grade writer? Because you have all of this kind of experience that you're drawing from, except for that you're writing from a child's perspective.
Yeah. I read a really interesting quote, and I wish I could remember who to attribute to. It was a literary agent who was saying when she evaluates middle grade, she always looks to see if the writer is writing for kids that age or if they're writing as a kid that age. And I wish that this is probably going to make me sound incredibly immature, but I think I can write that voice because I think my inner self probably is that age. In terms of I will sit down I have twins who are 12, and whatever they're watching on TV is probably what I would have picked to watch if I were home alone. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure that is a ringing endorsement for me, but it does make it a little easier to write that age because I think that's just my natural voice. That's sort of how I speak in my head.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing.
Don't tell anyone.
No, that's your secret is safe with me and anybody who listens to this
exactly,
interview.
And the rest of the internet world, yeah.
So this is a first book in a series, is that correct?
Potentially, but they have not made any decisions based on that. I think everyone is sort of taking a cautious approach, as seems to happen in publishing these days.
Right.
My next book with them is actually a series, only because the concept really required that it be a series a little bit more so than this. So I definitely have plans for a book 2 and some more adventures that Chloe can go on.
Yeah.
So the hope is that there will be subsequent.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now.
Yeah. So I'm working on 4 books at the same time, which is a little crazy.
Wow.
2 of them are part of a middle grade series that I'm co-writing with one of my good friends, who is also debuting with Aladdin this spring. Her book is called Breaking the Ice, and it's adorable. So we are co-writing a series that will come out in May of next year that follows 4 girls who are 12, turning 13, and they form a party planning, I'll say business in quotation marks, because it's a kid business, but they're pretty serious about it, where they plan parties for all types of people in their little tiny beach town in coastal North Carolina. It's a made-up little island called Sandpiper Beach, full of very quirky people. So they have a number of different little adventures and very fun parties, I will say.
Sounds fantastic. What's your writing process like for that? Do you work from an outline or?
Yeah, which is a first for me. So we typically, we just did this for book 2. So book 1 is in copy edits. And so what we did in both of those instances was schedule a phone call where we would talk for probably an hour and a half or 2 hours, in which we outline the entire book, chapter by chapter. And it's 4-person point of view. So we talk about who's going to write which point of views. And from that, then we go to Google Docs. And so we sort of piggyback where I'll write the first chapter and put it up there. Gail will critique it and offer some notes and revision ideas, but then she'll also piggyback off of that chapter to write her second. While she's writing the second, I'll go in and make revisions on the first, and then we switch for the next set of chapters.
Wow, that seems extremely efficient.
It is. I have to tell you, I think we wrote the first book in under a month with like so much less angst than I would have for any of my projects so far. It worked because I think a couple of different reasons. I think for one, we were each trying to write with the other in mind and wanting to make the other person laugh and impress the other person. So I think for both of us, I would say it raised our game. And also there's no procrastinating when you know that someone else is waiting on it, and you feel guilty if it's your turn to write the chapter and you're, watching Project Runway on the couch. That doesn't work. So you really forces your butt into a seat, which is something that I need.
That's really interesting because I interviewed Mary Crockett earlier, and she has co-written. Exactly, and that's exactly what she talked about was being sort of this accountability that you don't necessarily have when you're working solo.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
If I could figure out how to not disappoint myself, I tend to let myself off the hook pretty easily,
right.
But I never want to do that for anyone else.
Yeah.
If I could find a way to not disappoint myself, it'd be all good.
Yeah, I can
totally
relate to that. What snippet from At Your Service are you going to read for us?
So I'm going to read the beginning part of chapter 3. We've met Chloe, who's the main character. She is 12, and her father works at this hotel as a concierge, and they have a very difficult guest who is this little 9-year-old girl from France who comes in every year and makes ridiculous requests. And the parents are extremely rich. The hotel would bend over backward to do anything, but she's requesting things like, could a dolphin be flown in to swim with me in the swimming pool at the hotel, and so forth.
Right.
So Chloe's trying to help in any way that she can, but hasn't been all that successful so far. Chapter 3. It's day 3 of the French invasion, and things are not looking up. Way late last night, I overheard Dad on the phone in his bedroom, trying to assure Monsieur Le Fou that he would do everything in his power to please young Marie. But could they at least agree that a unicorn would be quite impossible to track down, given the fact that unicorns do not actually exist? Like I said before, if it exists, Dad can get it. Poor Dad. He so doesn't deserve this. He should get a special award at the next Le Clef d'Or conference. They're the super elite organization for concierges, and you have to be the best to wear their golden key membership pin. Someday. Anyway, I've been trying to help by staying out of Dad's way as much as possible, which really isn't so much of a problem for me. It's not hard to stay entertained at the Sun Michel. After school, I toss my backpack on my bed and swap out my school uniform for a black, hello, I'm a New Yorker, black is practically a residency requirement, peasant blouse, and black, native New Yorker here, trouser pants. I slip my glasses back on, then add a black fine-tip pen to my purse, which I sling across my chest so it rests flat against my hip. Professional, yet ready for any task, exactly like a hotel staffer should look. The door clicks shut behind me, and I immediately head down to the loading docks, where there's bound to be some action. Right away, I spot Mercy from housekeeping. She's busy stacking case upon case of Coke cans onto a rolling luggage cart. "What's all this?" I ask. "Got a whole slew of Coca-Cola people staying here tomorrow for their annual sales meeting. Gonna swap out all the Pepsi cans in the mini bars of their rooms with these here Coke cans. Want to help?" Voila! Afternoon solved. Mercy wears a little radio clipped to her waistband, and whenever she's not in earshot of any guests, she cranks it up and we sing along. Really, really badly. I double adore hanging with Mercy. Everything is perfect until, in the middle of us taking advantage of a deserted hallway to add in some choreographed dance moves, Mr. Wilpers rounds the corner. Mr. Wilpers is my evil nemesis, a.k.a. the hotel manager, a.k.a. the boss of everyone in the hotel except for the owner. He has a handlebar mustache, yes, for real, that he spends all day smoothing and combing. Really, he should be paying more attention to his eyebrows, because they're fuzzier than the roller on the shoe shine machine in our lobby. His face is usually all puffy with importance and blotchy red, but when he spots me, he turns an even deeper shade, like a turnip. This is because he hates me. Not just me, but all kids. Well, but most especially me, because my dad's super-duper negotiating skills scored us the apartment that should have gone to Mr. Wilpers, and now he has to take the subway home to Queens every night. "Chloe Turner, what have I told you about disturbing the staff during work hours?" Not to do it?" I offer. "Precisely. And yet you somehow manage to get underfoot everywhere I look. Care to explain?" "Well, Mr. Wilpers, sir, I was assisting Mercy with her workload, and because of my help, she managed to finish so far ahead of schedule, we determined she had a few spare minutes to work in a bit of exercise. Knowing how important the physical health of your employees is to you, of course, sir, I never imagined this would be something you could possibly object to." Mr. Wilpers closes his eyes while he takes a very, very deep breath, which gives Mercy the opportunity to fist bump me. Then he exhales so loudly his mustache blows up from the breeze. "I would encourage my staff to address their workout sessions in private spaces and preferably on their own time. As for you, Chloe, I think you could find somewhere else to be, yes?" I salute him, mostly because I know he hates when I do that, and wave a cheery goodbye to Mercy. It's fine. I'm starting to lose my voice from the singing, and after staring at all that candy in the mini bars, my stomach is rumbling. I head down to the employee cafeteria and wolf an early dinner of lasagna, join a quick game of gin rummy with 2 doormen on a break, and then swing by the lobby. I don't want to bother Dad, but I do want to check in case maybe he needs my help after all.